So much news out there, some of it even good. And when I've got good news to share, I gotta lean on my buddy Mark from the Tesla Life, who is joining us this week as he does. We are talking about cars in Asia, cars in China, cars in Europe. We're talking about a whole bunch of great stuff. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Mark, good to see you again, my friend.
Yes, indeed. Always good to be on the Good News Show. Fun stuff. Fun stuff.
I think it's a good format for us. And you know what? There's so much bad news out there. I don't know if I showed you this one, but on X, one of the big Tesla Q fudsters said, here are some sleazeball accounts to watch out for. Boomer Mama, Silicon Valley, Sawyer Merritt, Futuraza. I was like, oh, that's amazing.
You've made it.
It's an honor to be recognized by people who've literally never watched my show. And maybe they've watched an episode with you because he started calling me Mark. And then he changed the spelling a couple times. But I'm like, huh. And yet calling me Mark was the least wrong thing he said in his comments.
Wow.
Do you know that I apparently get paid by Elon Musk?
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
That's new to me.
Oh, it's very new. It's exciting. But that's not the good news we're talking about. We've got more exciting stuff. Did you know BYD was the third best selling brand in the world for July? Just for July.
Just for July. Okay.
But that's insane. They sold nearly half as many cars as first place Toyota and was just over 30,000 behind second place Volkswagen. They were within 30,000 cars of Volkswagen for the month of July.
BYD has been ramping up a tremendous amount now for years. They're on a path. They're definitely on a path to become one of the world's largest automakers. And once they get in that position, I don't think they're going to be dethroned because they're just pushing for volume.
Yes, and they're not losing money. They're not making money, but they're not losing money. And when they're number one, they already make their own batteries. They already make other people's batteries. They're vertically integrated. Now, it should be emphasized that the results are for the brand rather than the group. Yes, if you take Volkswagen and include all their sub-brands, then Volkswagen is much bigger. But, you know, there's your numbers. Interesting. Suzuki, those are remarkably strong numbers for a company that I haven't seen cars from for some time.
They must be a lot stronger outside of North America.
Yeah, I imagine they have held on to other markets more aggressively.
Yeah.
Great news. If we're still talking about China stuff, Xpeng looking to produce vehicles in Europe. Those tariffs, they're very aggressive.
Yes.
What's going on?
This is something that the European Union, as well as North America, is looking to promote for manufacturers that aren't currently building their products here to do that in order to circumnavigate the tariffs that are being placed on imports of vehicles to those free trade zones. So it makes a lot of sense that this automaker is looking at the tariffs. They're looking at how much it would cost to build another plant inside the European Union and what it would save them, what it would do to sales. And they're making a decision based on those calculations.
So little of the car is the labor cost. It is imperative that you have a good supply chain, but there are a lot of parts of Europe that either have the supply chain right there in the country itself or near enough that it might still work. Xpeng joins a list of growing Chinese automakers, including BYD, Chery, and Geely. Geely's Zeekr sub-brand in planning to localize production. You can't keep China away forever. The tidewaters are rising. This is how it happens. If what you really want is domestic jobs, congratulations, you got them. I think that's good news. Would you agree?
I would agree. That's exactly what's going to level the playing field. It's also going to go to the other manufacturers and it's going to say, listen, you guys are going to have to step up, start making more compelling vehicles. You're going to have to compete much better than you're currently doing if they start setting up manufacturing plants in your country.
Absolutely agreed on all points. One more Chinese manufacturer, Tesla, made EV sales up 3% year over year for August. Now, they are still slightly down from last year's trend line, but they have, a Model 3 refresh that's doing well. They've got a lot of tailwinds, and a lot of the new brands that are coming out of China go through hype cycles. You look at something like Xiaomi, they come out with a very, very strong debut and then kind of settle down pretty quick, because even though it's priced way below cost, it's a new car, and new cars have new car issues, new design issues. So they're doing their best. Sales of automaker Tesla in China grew 3% in August from a year earlier. Data from the CPCA showed deliveries of Model 3 and Y rose 17% from July, which is good because July was not very strong. And BYD, of course, posted a 35% year-on-year jump in passenger vehicle sales, but not all of those were pure electric. And so, yeah, that's great. Leap Motors and Li Auto are also up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that like you said, Tesla's got some tailwind behind them, and of course we've got the Model Y refresh that's coming, Juniper, at some point. And of course, China is a competitive market. They're going to love to have a refreshed Model Y available to them, and that's going to boost things.
I've heard so many predictions about China. I've heard that China is on the verge of collapse due to manipulated economic factors. But I've been hearing that for 24 years. And if I had invested accordingly, I would have done very poorly. But I don't invest in stocks that aren't directly traded on U.S. stock exchanges. So I guess I did invest accordingly, but I certainly wouldn't have shorted China. That's
a lot of time to be hearing the sky is falling.
That's a lot of time. But if you look at the people who really despise China and or Elon and or Tesla, you'll find that they're saying right now, look, it's over. There's no more growth. It's over. It's just done. And I find that hard to believe, because quarter after quarter, they've always been wrong. Gordon Johnson famously said, people aren't going to. Great. They managed to get through the backlog. Now they're done because everybody who wants one's already got one. I think the reason we're seeing sales level off in China is because there's only one factory and it's at capacity. The only way they could sell more domestically is if they exported fewer models, and they're going to sell them to whichever market they can get the highest market margin. So I think, yeah.
Well, you can see that argument when it comes to places like, say, Norway, that's now at a 90% EV penetration sales per month. So you can see that coming. But there's still people rebuying vehicles every 5, 6, 7 years. They're still buying those EVs and pushing it forward. Look at that. You're 94% now. So they are almost 100% at this point. This is a great news story.
Almost makes me a little emotional because, because as you know, Mark, EVs don't work in cold countries.
I know that. I'm in Canada.
We joke, they do work. I saw a great response to it on X, where the person posted a picture of their Tesla with literally about 7 feet of snow on top of it, that they had carved it out of wherever it had been snowed in. Like, well, guess I can't live here anymore. But yeah, boosted by Model Y sales, which accounted for 18% of sales, almost 19%. So when you're in a market that's pure electric, my gosh, does Tesla do well? And those markets are Norway, a lot of the Iceland, of the Nordic countries, but also in places like China, where EV adoption is very high. Tesla sells a lot of cars because, well, these other brands are better. Okay, if you say so. The market seems to disagree. And not to get all bad newsy, I don't know if you heard, but there's a company called WM in China that makes a very affordable electric SUV, but it requires an internet connection, and the company is on the verge of bankruptcy. And some people came out to find, I can't start my car. My app doesn't connect to the car anymore because they didn't pay the server bill.
Oh my gosh.
And some people are like, well, I found my backup physical key so I can get in, but the infotainment screen won't turn on because it doesn't know that I have a subscription because it can't validate. It's like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is terrifying. I had a Sony MP3 player, it was like the size of a USB stick, and it was silver and it had a little screen inside that you could see. And I was very annoyed because it wouldn't allow you to just drag and drop files. You had to use their stupid player store because it would try and sell you stuff. And then you never buy stuff. When Sony, years later, I was like, oh, I should use that for my podcast stuff that I'm listening to. I went and found it. I plugged it in and the player was gone. And I was like, I can't put stuff on this. So I looked to see if there was a solution. The last thing Sony did was gave you a file that you could run on it that would unlock it. So now it's just a regular player. Now you can just drag files onto it, just like you should have been able to all along. Sony just they didn't.
Good on them to unlock it, though. Good on them.
Yeah, I was so pleased. I was like, oh. I didn't like the first solution, but I understand the reason it was only $100 at the time or whatever it was because you had to make your money on the back end. And I'm glad that didn't work out and that you unlocked it. That's also good news, I suppose. So now that we're talking Europe, do you know what? Volvo has unveiled a heavy-duty electric truck with 600 kilometers of range. It's almost 400 miles.
Yes, indeed. And this is the transportation industry starting to catch up to cars. So they are figuring out that, my gosh, look at the success we're having with electric cars in Europe today. Why aren't we electrifying the fleet of trucks out there? That is the next big polluter we should be doing. And Volvo is huge in transportation trucks here in North America. Even the Volvos are a staple of the transportation industry when it comes to transport trucks.
The FH Electric joins a range of 8 battery electric vehicle, medium and heavy duty electric trucks. That's great. So they've got a little bit of something for everyone. I don't think Volvo cares necessarily about the environment, and certainly not enough to lose money over it. But what they do care about is money. And what they have found from other companies, you look at Mack Trucks, they make an electric garbage truck.
Yep.
And it's $500,000. $500,000. Yeah. And people still buy it. Why? Because in some places, the electricity is just worth it. It will make that money back. It has been decided. Or maybe it's just that they want something that's vastly quieter. There are a bunch of reasons. And if people
non-polluting in their backyards.
Oh, well, yeah, it could be that it has to operate indoors sometimes, in stadiums or something. But what happens is, if you've got early adopters who are willing to pay $500,000 for a truck, let them pay it. They can cover your R&D. You don't have to lose money on every unit. Move forward. Guys, this is the future, and we're living there, you, me, and Mark together in a little bungalow in the future. Very weird idea. So with that said, Ford has got a longer range electric van now.
That's exactly what Ford required. And of course, they had their low range fleet vehicle, which made sense to a number of fleets. But of course, having only 140 miles did not cut it. Over time, that's going to have to be pushed forward, and you're going to have to get a little bit more out of it. And that's the iteration that Ford is going through. They're looking at what it costs to build things. How can we make it better? How is it going to serve our fleet customers?
Well, unfortunately, it's not much better. The 126 mile, 200 kilometer is now up to 159 mile, 256 kilometer. It's still short range, but these are commercial customers who know their routes and they know if it works. And for a lot of customers, they would say, for fleet buyers, even, I'm sure they would say, look, we would buy them, but they're just too short for what we do. Well, great. We just added another 20% to the range.
Exactly.
and now it's available to be actually utilized by a lot more people. I may have told you this story. I did a video a while back in early May, where I got to interview a gentleman, an electrician, who uses an electric Ford Transit van, or electric Ford Econovan, I guess. And what he got, I think he paid, I want to say $45,000 was the price at the dealer. He got a $7,500 credit because it's a commercial vehicle. And the gas savings alone will pay for the truck in like 3 or 4 years. Free truck.
Yep.
And in the comments, of course, you've got all kinds of nitpicking going on. One guy said, well, that's great, but, where's he going to charge it? I think he knows an electrician. So I'm guessing at his own shop where he just installed his own electric charger. Well, but if he has to unhook to charge, that's going to suck. Still his own place. I'm sure he's got that figured out. I understand the complaint, but this is an electrician.
Oh, this is, like you said, it's a fleet owner. It's someone that knows their routes probably down to the mile on a regular basis.
The bread guy, whoever, if you're doing deliveries, you know your route. And for electricians, there aren't many who operate beyond a tri-county area. He said the only times he's ever needed to use a public charger is if he has to go all the way up to Seattle to get supplies or something unusual. And then he knows where the chargers are along the route. He has to stop once each way, maybe, or once on the way. I don't know. But he knows where the stops are.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I'm thinking it's good news.
Like you said, it's not a huge jump in range for the Ford, but it is 20%. So guess what? If you could do 20% every 2 years, you're in about 2 years, 3 years, you're talking a range that's going to open up new possibilities for new fleet owners.
Don't get mad at the early adopters. They're the reason the rest of us can get stuff affordably.
Yeah.
I've never had the newest, greatest graphics card. I don't need that. I'm happy to let the people who do need it pay for it. So the last good news story, and it's only kind of good news, is Renault, the Renault 17 reborn with a 270 brake horsepower, rear-wheel drive, and carbon fiber chassis. So it's going to look like that, I suppose. But it's not, because they're not going to build that. I mean,
you're quite optimistic about that, aren't you, Brian?
I like that they're dreaming, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And it even says that towards the end. Renault has not alluded to any plans for a production version, but a succession of similarly conceived retro-futuristic Renault concepts revealed over the past 3 years have all been based on old models. It's an idea, and there have been times when concept cars have been made into reality.
Yeah, but just most likely not. That's the thing. Is that if you look at it percentage-wise, very small percentage actually make it. But they're happy to do artist renderings, though. No problem.
Well, this one is cool, but I don't see the public outcry to actually build it. It's not like, the Viper was never meant to be built, but the public reaction to that car was so strong that they had no choice. They were like, this is our flagship. We got to build it. So that was kind of fun. Mark, any other news we're missing? Anything we need to be covering?
I think that's a good amount of good news for today, don't you?
I guess another bit of good news is, I believe as of this coming out, anyway, on Sunday the 15th, I will be at the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association Ride and Drive event, giving a couple presentations. Look it up, oeva.org. It's, I'm not sure where it is. I think it might be at the Daimler Truck headquarters. I'm not sure. Pretty sure it's there. Pretty sure.
But it'll be on the website.
It'll be on the oeva.org website. Check it out. What did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Leave it, you guys. Leave it in the comments. I beg of you, if there's one thing you could do today, and only one thing, I'd say you probably get a snack or sleep or something. But if you could do a second thing, it would be to leave a comment, like, subscribe, do all the usual. And stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the Flippity Flop.